I want to understand how things work. I want to understand the thought process behind why someone would, like Jack Parsons, what made him a Thelemite? Why did he go down this road as someone, who created the modern rocket propulsion system? What would make him go into sex magic?
Yeah.
And so I want to understand that. And so I think that it's made me a better storyteller. And I think it's helped define my own faith and my own belief system.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's really profound, and that's kind of the path I think that a lot of people in this space end up going down in one way or another, maybe not so directly, but in the sense that we're looking to merge science and religion or science and spirituality. If you look at the UFO space, for example, there's a lot of this talk of, oh, these are angelic beings and this is, whatever it is. And then on the other side, it's like, no, it's just purely like nuts and bolts. But then there's this school of, okay, maybe we're talking about the same thing. Maybe what's spiritual to you is quantum physics to me. And that's something that Jack Parsons actually tried to merge, although, in a more deviant manner.
Yeah, and he had a very horrific ending.
Yeah.
Jack Parsons he's fascinating because you look at a guy who, a genius, but doing things that I think would be labeled insane or crazy.
Yeah.
In trying to find that balance between the two where, by day he's this rocket propulsion person, and by night he is participating in ritualistic magic.
Yeah.
And, there's a fascinating, I recommend, if you've not seen it, Strange Angel.
Yeah, just got done watching season 1.
It's great. I love that because it's, first off, by the time you get to season 2, you're just going to ask yourself, how did this ever get greenlit? How did anyone put this on TV?
Yeah.
And I love it.
Was it 2016, I think it was? Or
Yeah,
something like that.
And it bums me out that it didn't continue. You'll understand why it didn't, because it goes places. It definitely goes. And they did not shy away from the occult in that.
I love that, though. I think even in like the first episode, there's already like this guy bringing a goat into his house and then coming out with a vial of blood later.
Yeah.
You're like, what happened there? For people who don't know about Jack Parsons, he was one of the founding figures in American rocketry, co-founding JPL, so Jet Propulsion Labs, and Aerojet Engineering Corp. His work laid the foundation for NASA, what we now know as NASA. And the most interesting part of all this guy was basically just like a chemist. Like he
didn't go to like some massive.
He didn't go to school for this. And so for him to be accepted in modern rocketry, first of all, going down this whole sort of occultist, Aleister Crowley, sex magic route, actually, they withdrew his name from a lot of this early American rocketry stuff.
Yeah, he was shunned, his belief system, because when you're dealing with what he was dealing with clearances, with all of that, he went through a very intense process of being vetted, and then here he is. And at that time, I think he had the compound. He had that in Pasadena. I forget the name of it now.
The Parsonage.
Yeah.
Which was like this place for rituals, this place for like people from all over would come, these luminaries or these, whatever you were, these vagabonds.
Well, and I think it was a hard time because anytime you mention a cult, you're either met with a dead stare. I was at dinner, I won't say the name, but I was at dinner last night with the magician we both know, and the first question was, are you into Satanism? And I was like, no. And they're like, but isn't that a cult? And I'm like, no, it's not. So much of a cult comes from Christian teachings. It comes from, things that are the opposite of that. But I think that there is a belief that so much of this is, evil, bad, satanic, whatever. And I think that what he was now, I'm not saying what he was doing was not, because he was on a much darker path. But I think that, trying to juggle both of those things, being somebody in that high in the government and going and doing ritualistic sex magic at night.
Yeah, especially in the time where it was like super taboo. This is like late 40s, actually early to late 40s, and then associating himself eventually with people like Aleister Crowley
and L. Ron
Hubbard. That's right. Getting mixed up with these folks and doing some really sort of like nefariously oriented things.
He went down a very dark path,
mm-hmm.
and then I read the book years ago, the book in which the show is based on, but he was trying to bring about Babylon, the girl.
Yeah, the elemental.
Yeah.
Yeah, female elemental, the goddess Babylon
Yeah.
was him and L. Ron Hubbard were trying to summon this lady, essentially.
I had such a worldview shift.
And then he did, by the way.
Yeah, and then he blew up.
Yeah, but he did end up like summoning
he supposedly summoned the devil.
His girlfriend showed up. This like beautiful redheaded lady who showed up. What was her name? Marjorie Cameron. Sorry.
His very early on in his life, I think early teens, he felt he summoned the devil, Lucifer, in his room, and that's what got his fascination into the occult. But for me, he was practicing. He was going through and doing these rituals and doing whatever. I am so just fascinated with learning in the same way that I wanted to understand in cardistry how to do a double lift or to do whatever. I wanted to understand it because it gave me a new way of thinking. When I learned magic or went down that rabbit hole of, and I say magic with a sleight of hand, it changed the way that I approach problems. It was a problem. So I think as a magician now, when I'm doing a movie, when I'm doing a saw trap example, here's one I can explain it. We wanted all the saw traps to be practical. I didn't want to use visual effects. So we would design them in forced perspective with mirrors. I learned that through magic thinking. I wanted to understand this whole kind of idea about esoteric thought because I wanted just to think differently. And I think that so many people are so close-minded to whatever they grew up believing. Mm-hmm. I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in a Lutheran household. My grandfather was a Baptist minister. So I had this kind of sheltered view of the world. I've been lucky enough to travel the world with these movies, and I just recently went to Saudi Arabia, and I had a very sheltered view of Islam. And then I go there, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's this, it's this, it's this. And my whole, I guess, mentality of that culture shifted. And that's why I think I'm so fascinated with all of this esoteric thought is it completely shatters all of these preconceived notions and open my mind up to believe and accept a lot more that I maybe wouldn't have believed or accepted if I did not read that book.
Yeah, and a lot of these ritualistic things that we bear witness to at a young age. I was raised Catholic as well, and eating the body of Christ, drinking the blood, like these are things that seem fairly normal as a child, and as you grow up and kind of have a removed sort of sense of what this is, a bird's eye view, if you will, of what's going on. And I had that happen to me actually when I was in my early 20s, and at that point I was still kind of practicing religion a little bit. I would go to church with like friends and stuff, and at one point I was at a baptism, and it was a Catholic baptism. In walks the priest, but like dressed in like these golden robes. He had a scepter, and like following him were these people with like this smoke, and everything was gold. Somebody was holding a big golden book.
That is a ritual. You were going to a ritual.
That's right. And I'm watching this stuff, and it's kind of like hitting me now because I'd gone every Wednesday night. We'd have like prayer night, and there was music. It was beautiful. Like people would congregate, and they were all lovely, and everyone was really nice to each other. It was all normal. But then I started to look at it like, whoa, what's going on here? And when they baptized the child in this giant, like a stone basin,
an altar.
Yeah, and they put water, and I remember there's a lady. This always stuck out to me. They go to put water on the child's head, and it kind of only grazed the child's hair. And then he went on with his thing, and a lady in the back goes, "You didn't get him, right?" And I'm thinking, surely this is only symbolic. And then he's like, oh, and then he puts more, and now it's in the baby's eyes. The baby's crying and everything. And at that point, I was like, wait a second. Is this symbolic or is this literal? And that really shifted how I see all of this. And I'm like, this must be symbolic. And if it's symbolic, surely we don't need all of this. We don't need all of these, bells and whistles if it's just a mind state, right? But for me, yeah, that really showed me that even the things that I was, like you're saying, really accustomed to and never really questioned, all of a sudden from a different perspective seemed occult, seemed a little foreign to me.
So much, I think that I'm in a unique position being in Hollywood and getting to work in movies, seeing how much the esoteric thought is ingrained in certain things. Some of my favorite, I love graphic novels. Some of my favorite graphic novels are written by some of the biggest occultists, Alan Moore, who most people would know from Watchmen, from Hell. this guy is a true magician, esoteric thinker. I remember I listened to one of my favorite books is something called The Invisibles, which is very much based in like esoteric thought, but it's a graphic novel. He had a YouTube video off a lecture he wrote for a book called Disinformation Guide of the Occult, I think is what it's called, where he talks about chaos magic. And things just clicked for me in those, like the words they were saying, ideas that they had. And I realized how much of our life is a ritual or magic. The idea of saying I love you to me is magic, because you can say I love you to someone and those words change that relationship with that person. So you've put an intention out there, you said I love you, and now all of a sudden your relationship has changed with that person. These little things I never thought of before. So things just started connecting for me that never did before. How much of what we do is ritualistic? I mean, you just went through, imagine that same thing of a Catholic church, but put it in a dark underground cave, and that same thing, all of a sudden that becomes satanic, that becomes whatever. So much of it, of society is,
and that's a good point. I mean, even, we would, there's this, I don't know if there's any truth to this, but it sounds true. But when we spell things, right?
Yeah,
it's an actual spell, you're casting, you're saying, hey, go outside, and I send this letter across the world, and the person who reads it then goes outside.
You have said something and they've done something. You created
haven't
action.
even said it. You've just...
But that is an action. So that, and I think that's something else that I found fascinating was this idea that magic is just something that you don't yet understand. So if you go to a caveman and hand him a lighter, that's magic. But when you actually understand the mechanics of it, it's not. I always find that fascinating because I've looked at things as a kid and I was like, oh my God, that's magical. And then I learned them and I'm like, it's not magic, it's this. So how much of these things that we hear about or read about is just, I forgot who said it, but it's just magic is science not yet defined.
Arthur C. Clarke, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
Exactly. And I just wonder how many things like that we see that soon will no longer be magic, it'll be science.